Hi, I'm Lindsay, and I'm a homeschool mom to 5 children, and I'm here to talk today about using the well-educated heart for preschool and or kindergarten.
I'm gonna make a bluish red.
Okay, I'm here to talk about how to do kindergarten and preschool if you're a homeschooler, if you're new, and how to use the well-educated heart to do preschool and or kindergarten. All of my children are around me painting, so people are talking a little bit. Okay, please don't make that sound.
Why?
Okay, so the first thing, if you're new to homeschooling or if it's your first time homeschooling a preschooler or a kindergartner, please keep in mind that your child does not need to learn how to read when they're 4 years old. They don't need to start kindergarten when they're 5. They don't need to start preschool when they're 4 or 3. They do not need to do anything, okay? They don't need to do anything. If you've done any reading about homeschool, most people really start to worry about reading and doing like formal school when the kids are like maybe 6 or 7, okay? So you do not have to do any of these things. However, if you want to, or your child is interested, then you can go ahead and do that. I'm gonna show you one way to do that with all of, well, not all of, some of the Well-Educated Heart books. And you will only need these for preschool and kindergarten, and then you'll need 2 other items, which I'll talk about in a second. The first things that I'm going to talk about are to consider when you're homeschooling preschool or kindergarten. Something that's helpful for me. Wow, that looks great. Something that's helpful for me is to look at your state standards and see, here you go, and see what the expectations are of preschool and kindergarten ages. You will be surprised because it is like, I know my first and last name. I know my parents' names. I know my colors and my shapes. I can count to 10 or something. Like, it's not challenging. None of these state standards are requiring the child to learn how to read, okay? What are the abilities of your child? What are the things that your child's good at? Some kids are better or more interested in certain types of things than other kids, even at 4 and 5. What is your family dynamic like? Do you work from home? Are you a single parent? Do you have both parents working from home? Does your husband go to work every day? Are you homeschooling other children? And do your other children have extracurriculars? Do they have to be places? Do you have to be places? These are some things to think about before you start your 4 or 5-year-old on school, even a 6-year-old, because this is not necessary. Most of these things you would just hopefully do normally without any sort of a curriculum, so you don't need that. Let's see, I made a list. The daily expectations, we talked about that. The things that you're gonna teach a preschooler and a kindergartner, this is what you're gonna teach them. You're gonna focus on habits, teaching habits. Wow, that looks amazing. Good job. You're gonna teach habits, putting away your clothes, putting on your clothes, how to put your dish at the sink, how to clean up after yourself, brushing your teeth, listening, following directions, those sorts of things. At 4 and 5, your kids can do age-appropriate chores. My kids have to do 2 chores per person per day. My 4-year-old, he's responsible for, what are your chores?
Clean up my bed.
Okay.
And clean up my toys.
Cleaning up your bed and cleaning up your toys. Well, you do that anyways, but your chores are feeding the dogs and getting the mail.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're going to read them stories, and that's what we're going to be talking about in just a minute. And the other things are beginning to learn letter sounds, and counting. And those are very natural things that you can be doing. You don't need a curriculum. You don't have to buy anything. I will talk about that in a second. And the most important part for 4 and 5-year-olds is playing outside, playing with friends, going in nature, going to different things, the grocery store, different things like that. Okay. Again, you don't need to do any of these things. I like to expose my kids to playing with other kids. like one time a week at least. If it doesn't happen, that's okay.
Speaking of that.
Okay, that's okay. Paint on your canvas.
Speaking of that, can you invite Ron?
An unpopular opinion that I do want to talk about is do not listen to homeschoolers, creators, people on TikTok or Instagram. Okay, that's red. Red. People that have, and this is going to be super unpopular opinion, maybe, but if they are just brand new to homeschooling. I'm not a homeschool veteran, but I am homeschooling 3 children, soon to be 4 children, and I have 5 children total. I've been educating myself about homeschool since 2019, and I've been implementing those things since 2019, and so I'm definitely not a senior voice on this topic, but I would highly recommend that you listen to someone who has graduated their children, someone who's a grandmother.
Mom.
That's red. Someone who's a grandmother who has already seen, okay, it's blue, seen the fruits of their labors. And I'll talk more about that in a second, but you do not want to listen to the people who have 1 kid, the people who just started homeschooling, the people whose kids are still, the oldest child's in preschool or kindergarten. I'm sure that those people have amazing life advice and insight into things that you might be experiencing as the parent of a baby, as the parent of a younger child, but they don't. I feel like homeschooling is like the first 3 years you're just learning about it. And then you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to work for me. So please find yourself what I call a grandmother mentor. It doesn't have to be someone in person. If they're in person, even better. But I will talk about that in just a second. Okay, just a quick note about the grandmother mentor situation. There is, for the well-educated heart, I've talked about this in another video, but one of the reasons that I love it so much is for the mother support. And they have in-person Mothers of Influence groups, and those are meetings every month to talk about the topics from the Mother's Learning Library books. Again, I talked about that briefly in another video, but if you want to join that, or if you're interested in learning more, you can go to the Well-Educated Heart website and go through the Catch the Vision course. It's not really a course, it's just there's videos and articles and different things so that you can learn more about it, and then join in when you're ready to meet other mothers. And just, it's full of a wealth of information that Marlene has put on there, Marlene and other mothers who've contributed to this massive amount of information about homeschooling and just educating in general. Okay, I'm going to talk specifically about the Well-Educated Heart and using it for preschool or kindergarten ages. We have tried multiple different curriculums, and I have now taught 3 children how to read. 2 of those were with curriculums or like homeschooling, and one of them was in public school, and she could not, she struggled really hard, and so she needed extra help at home. And so I've come to the conclusion that this is what works for best for us. And I feel like I'm gonna share because you don't have to do all that extra stuff. You don't need to do extra stuff. You don't need to buy anything. I like the Well-Educated Heart because you can have all the books, and these are good like forever. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. It doesn't matter how old you are, and you can use it just because you like to use it, and we'll talk about what else. So the 2 book series from the Well-Educated Heart are My Book of Delights, and the other book series is the Story Hour series. Each of them have 12 volumes, and each of them are for younger ages. Uh-oh.
Look at the picture.
And My Book of Delights is really for any child. And so we'll start talking about this one. Okay, the first thing is the Book of Delights. And like I said, these are for younger ages and for older ages. This is a book of fine art, poetry and some short stories. Let me try to share some of these. This is the first month 1, and this is the artwork of Carl Larson. And there are poems and some more artwork. And these are really fun because I have yet to find, I feel like a lot of other curriculums use like artist studies and they never put it into a book. And they never like make it accessible for people, for kids to look at. I just feel like it's physically disjointed. I want it to be a book. Wow. A hurricane?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So this just is full of pictures and some short stories. And it's organized by month, and then in the back there's a index of artwork so you can find out who painted it. So this is book 1. It's Scandinavia, the South Seas stars. Let's see. Explorers. And so this one really features like more of the Scandinavian countries. And so again, there's 12 of those that match up with the rotation of the other parts of the Well-Educated Heart. In the Catch the Vision on the Well-Educated Heart website, Marlene talks about the stages of childhood development through learning. And the first stage is familiar stories. Familiar stories, then imaginative stories, and then heroic stories. And these are the building blocks for the soul. I wrote that down and I didn't write down who said it. But anyways, and so someone else shared this in the Facebook group. It's just a summary. Okay. This is just a summary of each of the forgotten classics. And the Book of Delights, it says, this was created for my daughter who is brand new to reading and looking for something she could read. But the books in the schedules were just a little bit too difficult. Surprisingly, people of all ages seem to love it. Beautiful artwork, poetry, and stories. Why wouldn't they? This is often the new recommendation for the first series to buy, no matter the age. And if I were to buy one physical set of series, this would be it because of the pictures. Let's see some more pictures of this because I've never seen like a flip through of these. Okay, try to just, if you could just wipe it off, that would be good. This is from book 10, from month 10, which is Latin America, the human body, and the Civil War era. Oh wait, no, this is book 10. Germany, Russia, Austria, and America in the 1900s. Sorry. So this helps a lot because when you're having a literature-based curriculum, your kids, like, I feel like, how can your kids not look at any pictures? So this you can look at with little kids, and then this you can also have on your table while you're reading the other series or other literature books to older kids to look at the pictures because you want to know what it looks like in Germany or Austria. Like, here's a picture of a painting of King Frederick and his family. And you would never know what he looked like if you're just reading about him. So I really like those. Okay, so those are for all kids. And then the second one, the Story Hour series. Here's the first book of the Story Hour series, the stories of paintings. And so these are each different topics. I'll talk about it. This is a great, so on the summaries, it's hard because I have to just do this during the day because everybody's, if it's dark, then you can't see the books. The summary from the Facebook group says, this is a great place to start because it has a little of everything. It goes through the developmental stages, starting with nursery rhymes. I'm just going to show each one. And familiar stories, like The Three Little Bears, moves on to imagination with fairy tales and myths, and goes into legends and heroes. And then the biographies of real people. Oh, these are out of order. A poetry and nature volume are included. 2, this was designed for 8 years and old and under, but even my older kids enjoy many of the stories. In the Catch the Vision Forgotten Classics video, I think it's under number 5, the Grand Buffet, but Marlene talks about how she started out with this series and she really felt like it helps empower parents to gain appreciation and understanding of how to tell stories and how that can help instill a love of learning for their child. This is number 11. Oh wait, that was number 10. This is number 11. Stories that teach values and Christmas. Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 of the specific books, and then I'm going to talk about how you could implement this for a preschooler or a kindergartner. The first book I'm going to talk about is Stories of Paintings from the Story Hour series. This discusses, it's basically an artist study, okay? It has a small picture of the artwork and it says the artist's name, and then it talks it's pretty short. Some of them are longer, but like you could split it into different things. Like that one was 4 pages. This one is just 3 pages. And then there's on the website, you can open the images that go along with this, like full size, and take a look at them. I uploaded half of the images in the Facebook group in the files section if you search for Story Hour series paintings. But this is really good because I feel like a lot of curriculums for the older ages really push artist study. And like I was saying with the my Book of Delights, it's hard. It's like not accessible. I feel like it's not accessible. You have to find your own images or order a whole packet. And it's just hard to do that. It's hard to do that. My kids are pouring paint on a painting. So I really like this. You could use this for older ages too. You could use this one for everybody. These are really versatile, the Story Hour series, and I like that about them because you could read it to little kids or you could read it to big kids. Then the second one of those has nursery rhymes. That one's kind of like the Book House and the Children's Hour books. It has nursery rhymes and short stories like the Gingerbread Man. This is the other one I'm going to talk about from the Story Hour series, the Stories of Great Lives. This is like the small people years prerequisite to the classical learning, Plutarch, Shakespeare, just the biographies of people. Okay, so that one has like, you know, biographies, a little bit of introduction to some, you know, of the Plutarch's lives, people. This one is Stories from Great Literature. This one has Shakespeare stories in it, and it is Mary Maud's version. There is The Stories of Don Quixote by James Baldwin. So I didn't say, but these ones have just different pieces of stories compiled by the topic in here. I don't think any of these Story Hour series are one story except for Stories from the Bible. And this is Stories from the Bible by W.H. Bennett and Helen Brown Hoyt. Okay, so none of these were written by Marlene Peterson. She has compiled them into the books. I do think that, okay, I do think that some of the shorter stories in here and maybe some of the biographies were just written by Marlene or some of her children, just because they're like pretty short and they probably were just adapted from one of the stories in the other series. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how you could implement these with your preschooler or your kindergartner. Just read them. You just read them. For these, you could follow the rotation schedule. So this is book 10, and that's for June. And then so that if you have more kids and you're following the rotation schedule, they can kind of start to get into the groove of that. And that's really what preschool and kindergarten is all about, is just starting to learn how to be a person. Like, get your habits, get your big ideas of things, get exposed to different artwork and different learning types, stories, and stuff like that. So even if you have a kid that is eager to learn with their siblings, you can just include them by doing the rotation. They can just listen along. And then the story hour series, I would just like, this is the one, I know I've talked before about how I have a problem not having a schedule. These are the ones that I feel like you just pick up one of them and open it and read a story at bedtime or at lunchtime or when you're just hanging out with your kids. Those are the ones that you just pick a random story and read it. And I feel like they're short. And so to me, it's high quality literature. So it's more impactful, even for bigger kids, if they just have a short part of it, you know? And then the only other thing I was going to say is that for preschool and kindergarten, you can just get flashcards for the letters, or like I can't point to it, but these up here. And then just practice the letter sounds every single day. Like this one says ah, this one says ba, this one says k, and then count to 20. Learn how to, learn their first and last name, parents' names, stuff like that, and the shapes. You don't need a curriculum for that. You just don't. And so that is something that I wish someone had told me, because it's a lot of pressure, especially when you're teaching someone how to read later. They're not probably going to be able to read in preschool or kindergarten. Some kids will because they want to, but most kids need a little bit of time, and most kids really start to take off with their reading when they're interested in learning how to read. So right now you just expose them to different, all the letter sounds, the numbers, and just easy different counting games or whatever. Measuring, we need 3 cups of flour, that kind of thing, and playing outside. That's all you need for preschool and kindergarten. So hopefully that, even though it was frantic because my children were painting and also making a mess while I made this video, but hopefully that helps. And I hope that having some of the flip throughs of the books really helps people, because I haven't really seen, of course you can go on the Well Educated Heart website and open it, and all of these are free to read online, but you can't possibly just look through every single one to see which ones you want. So I hope that helps someone. The Story Hour series, they don't have pictures in them except the paintings, but you're going to need bigger images of the paintings. So just keep that in mind. Definitely highly recommend My Book of Delights and the Story Hour series for under 8 years old. So if you're struggling to choose, what should I get if I have to get something? Those are my 2 recommendations if your kids are under 8 years old. Okay, so I hope this helps, and thank you for watching my video. Have a good day.